if you are not educated, someone else is co-opting your voice, someone else is co-opting your vote, and they are taking away your power.
Hello everyone, this is Andrew and Daphne. Our guest today is Shai Davidai. Now we've had Shai before. If you haven't heard that episode, go look it up. But for Shai, for people that don't know who you are, could you just say a bit about where you're from and what you do?
Wow, that question always gets me. Shai Davidai. I was born and raised in Israel. I'm as of now, an assistant professor at Columbia University. But since October 7, some say that I was activated by October 7. I've been very vocal in my opposition to what I see as anti-Jewish, anti-Israel, and anti-Western rhetoric in U.S. campuses in North America.
Okay, and for people that listen to this, they say, we like Shai, we want to follow him, see what he's doing. Where can they do that?
Well, first I have to tell you, you don't have to like me to follow me. In fact, I don't want to be followed just by people who like me. I want to be followed. I don't want to be followed. I just want to be challenged. And if people agree with my message, it should be amplified. And if not, it should be challenged. They can find me on Instagram and on X, just Shai Davidai. That's ShaiDavidai. And I also have a podcast where I amplify other people's voices that have been fighting, and it's called Here I Am with Shai Davidai.
Okay, and I'll put those links in the description box. So if you're listening, you're watching this, they're there ready for you to go and check out. Yeah, you've got a lot of supporters out there. I know the YouTube comments on the last video got quite tasty. I don't know if you've seen some of that, but it was quite interesting.
Which video was that? The one
the last one we did.
What were the comments? I'll be honest with you. I never read the comments. I never read comments about anything. Not because I don't think people shouldn't be speaking up. It's because I am not judged by what other people think about me.
Yeah.
I always check what my friends and people I love and care about say and think about me. And as long as they are okay, I'm okay. And when they are criticizing me, as they have and do, I change course. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, similarly, if I'm in a video or something, even our podcast, as soon as I've uploaded it, I'm not, or if we're speaking somewhere, they put it up, I never watch it. I don't go back to rehash the things, but, yeah, it was quite interesting. Anyway, so you have got a lot of love out there, and a few people that I guess are not your biggest fans, but
yes. Look, I never started speaking up for fame, fortune, or fanhood. I started speaking up because I felt there was a need, and that need wasn't being fulfilled, and I said, well, I guess I have to do it. And I think it was Churchill, right, that said, if you're making people angry, you must be doing something right. You're probably stepping on some things where people don't want you to step. And I'm not trying to make people angry, but if I'm making people think and pushing them out of their comfort zone, as long as I'm doing it respectfully, I don't see any problem with that.
So let's work backwards. If we get as far as last time we met, let's start here. What's happening in your world, with your life, what you're up to at the moment?
We can talk about my life, but I think the bigger issue is obviously where I'm at. So right now I'm still employed by Columbia University, even though they won't let me go on campus or any campus. They won't let me go in my office. And they also won't let me teach. They wanted me to do some training, to sensitivity training. It's a very American thing. And I said I would, but then they also wanted me to sign a gag order. And I said I wouldn't, because I want to be able to just speak up and tell people what's happening. And when I refused to sign the gag order, they basically refused to let me teach. So
Is
I've
that a
been
gag
fighting.
order so you couldn't talk about what happened in the sensitivity training, or just generally you couldn't speak?
In the sensitivity training.
It would have been
and by the
interesting
way,
for you and Jordan Peterson, both doing sensitivity training, to compare notes.
I have no problem with sensitivity training because I have no problem with sensitivity, and I'm an educator. I believe in education. I don't like the word training. Training is what you do to a pet rather than a human being. But I understand. It's the secrecy behind all of it, and that's the problem. Those are it, and it's all one of the same thing of why we still see students taking over buildings at Columbia and Barnard University and going, home scot-free with no repercussions. And it's all one of the same. I mean, I can tell you a story. I actually haven't told this to anyone, so it's like an exclusive. There's one of the student leaders at Columbia. I'm not going to say her name, but she's a master's student who's been organizing protests at the School of Social Work, has 30,000 followers on social media. So a big thing. And she has it for me. She really doesn't like me, and I understand it. We have a very strong difference of opinion. A few weeks ago, I saw that she tweeted something about her grandmother passing away. And it touched me. I don't know why, but it really touched me. It had nothing to do with Israel, Palestine, anti-Semitism, nothing. So I emailed her, and the subject line was my condolences. And then I just said, I know you don't like me. I know we have very strong differing opinions, but I just saw your grandmother passed away. I lost my grandmother when I was about your age, and it's never easy. And I just wanted to share my condolences and send you and your family my love. 2 days later, I got an email from my lawyers that they've been notified by the university that I have a no contact order to that student. And the first thing I said to my lawyers was, if the student doesn't feel comfortable with me contacting her, of course, I will never contact her again. That's not who I am. That's not what I want to do. At the same time, I wanted to be clear that I'm getting a no contact order because I expressed my condolences with a student who talked about her grandmother passing away. So it kind of shows you how the machine works. I asked my lawyers, can I speak about the student in her capacity as a leader in this movement? And they said, legally, you are allowed. Now the university is trying to stop me from even speaking about this person. So it kind of shows you what happens when logic is thrown out the window. And also empathy and compassion is thrown out the window. We live in some sort of Black Mirror episode.
Yeah, I was wondering as you were sharing that, if the roles were reversed, if you would have got an email expressing these condolences and then you finished the way you did. So I'm going to assume it's probably a no. I mean, how sad is that we can't even put aside these differences that we have, and on a situation of a death of a relative, we can't even just express some human emotions of support and encouragement in those things, that even that is too much to have that kind of contact.
I think, in fact, I don't know if it's custom or just something that happens quite often, but I know of many, many stories of people mending broken relationships over the Shiva, the 7th day of mourning that happens in Jewish tradition, where people that you haven't spoken with, people that you've had big fights with, come over to express their condolences, and that's how you start mending. I would obviously never complain about someone expressing their condolences. But the reason I tell you this story is because it's how our systems, our institutions, and obviously I'm at Columbia University, but this happens in many universities and other institutions around the world, are being used for nefarious reasons in a way that is not advancing our goals.
Is this, where is this with the university since we last spoke? I mean, is it intensifying? Is it spreading? Is it localized? And has Trump coming in made any difference at all? Because I know he's made some executive orders. Where's all that at?
That's a great question. So we're experiencing two things at once. On the one hand, the scope is smaller, meaning I've been saying this, the keffiyeh as a fashion trend has kind of like died down. So instead of having hundreds of students and faculty protesting, now we have, let's say, a core of 50 to 100. At the same time, that core has become more and more extreme. So the ones that have remained devoted are now devoted to not just violent rhetoric, but also violent action. We are seeing or hearing, let's say, rumblings from inside the administration of concern about what's going to happen with the executive orders, with the Trump administration. I would say it's not enough. It feels like the universities playing chicken with the administration, and they're going to drive us off a cliff instead of pulling the brakes, saying, we're wrong, we have to do a 180 and completely reverse course. So we've had, over the past months, we've had students target an Israeli professor's class, barge into the class, giving out flyers that are basically taken out of Nazi propaganda, of boots stepping on the Star of David. We've had the main student organization pouring concrete down the toilet pipes in a building at the university to what they say, no business as usual. We've had targeting of Jewish individuals under the guise of Zionists. We've had, obviously, an overtaking of a building for 7 hours. So it's not as widespread, but it's even more pernicious. At the same time, there's hope, I have to say. There's hope because as you look around, while not a lot of people are speaking up, more and more people, Jewish and non-Jewish people, are just fed up. They want to live their lives. They want to go to school. They want to go to work. They don't want every day to be a battle between what they see as, for what they see, which is for a terrorist organization.
Yeah, I think that I've just seen that Trump's said that funding will be pulled from colleges and universities that either support or, I guess, sympathetic to some of these issues. And I think I've seen that there have been some students that have been deported. I think, have you had those at Columbia, or are those mostly other universities?
There haven't been many cases of students being deported. There was a whole story about should they deport students or not, and I was asked about it. I was interviewed about it, and I said, look, I'm not a liberal, I'm not a conservative, I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat, I'm Shai Davidai. And I can tell you from my experience, when I came to the United States, I came here on a student visa. And I saw it as an agreement between me and the government. I have to fulfill certain rules. And if I do so, I get the benefits of living here and studying here.
Yeah.
And until I got my green card, I always drove under the speed limit just to make sure, because, I knew about my situation. So I have no problem with students who break the rules, break the law, that are on visa being deported. But we have to remember that's not the problem here. First of all, for many U.S. citizen students that are involved, but more than that, the students are the symptom. The real problem is the faculty that have been indoctrinating them, and the administration that allows that to happen. Every 4 years, you get a new crop of students. The faculty and the administration remain the same. So I was happy when Trump did those statements, and they will lead to some actions. But we really need a deeper fix here.
So, before we move on from this subject, what happens with you then? So, you've been basically suspended for I don't know how long it's been now. It's been a while though, but they continue to pay you. But presumably they're not going to want to just pay you indefinitely to not teach. Yeah. So what's the process now for you personally and Columbia?
So I have been suspended officially since October 15th. I haven't been. A month ago, I wanted to be in my office to get some books. They wouldn't let me. I asked if my wife can come and get the books for me. They said no. So I had to get a paralegal to go and get it and FaceTime with me while we're in my office. The process is unclear. I'm in conversation now with Columbia about, finding a way to separate our paths. It's unclear what will happen. But if not, I'll stick around until, they get rid of me, and then I'll see them at court.
Well, what are they wanting? They say, right, Shai, you can come back, you can teach if you.
I don't exactly know, Daphne. I'll be completely honest with you. I'm not exactly sure. And I have a suspicion that they don't exactly know.
I was thinking that.
I think they just don't want the problem to be talked about. I think dealing with the problem is too much for them. So instead of doing that, they'd rather deal with the person who keeps the problem in the headlines. They know I won't stop speaking up. So I believe that right now I am, more than anything, they don't think of me as Shai Davidai, the professor or the Israeli or even the human being. They think of me as Shai Davidai as the financial liability. And I mean, we have to remember, it pains me to say this every time that I say this, because I came into academia with such lofty and ideals of education and exploration of knowledge. But the truth is, I'm dealing with a institution that has a $14 billion endowment. They are not thinking about what is the morally right thing, or even the logically right thing. They're thinking about what is the financially safe thing to do. And in that situation, I don't blame them. They don't want the person rocking the boat, even though the boat is riddled with holes and he's trying to save the boat.
Yeah, it seems, from my perspective, on the Columbia side of things, they're in trouble whichever way they go on this one. They're going to be hit hard whether Shai's there or not, and they can get rid of you, but the damage has been done at this point, right?
So one of the things that I've been doing, again, I haven't told this to a lot of people, so this is like an expose. I've been writing a book. I've been writing a book about my experiences, about the things, the way I see them, not as the definite, here's the one book you need to read, but I would like you to also read my experiences and put that into your entire, vision of what's happening. And in writing the book, I had to go over a lot of notes that I've taken over the past year and a half. And I was reminded of a meeting that I had on November 6, 2023. So we're talking 3 weeks after things exploded on campus. And I met with the senior vice president of the university. And I offered him, and I told him, look, this problem is not going to go away on its own. Here are 3 things that you can do. And I want to help you. Number 1, you have to speak out against Hamas. Make it clear terror has no place in the world, and especially not on campus. Number 2, you have to sanction the bodies in the university that are glorifying terrorism. But even that is not enough, because number 3, once you remove the hatred from campus, you have to create a place for people to protest out of love and out of goodwill. So maybe create some sort of conference for moderate Israeli and Palestinian voices, bring them together to the university so we can discuss this and show a different model of how we are fighting for peace, for love, against terrorism. We listen to the Palestinian side, we listen to the Israeli side. And I keep thinking, this was November 6, 2023, and I keep thinking, had they taken that advice, or maybe just a version of that advice, we would have been somewhere completely different. But
I've got a title for you.
what is it?
I won't shy away.
Oh, I love it. I won't. The working title is Here I Am, which is the name of my podcast, but it's also it also draws from a biblical term of hineni. Here I am shows up quite a bit. Actually, I recently just tattooed it on my hand.
That's a favorite saying of ours too.
Here I am. And it really just shows the idea of when you are called on to deliver a message, when you are called on to fight, when you are called on to save people, when you're called on to just listen, you just say, "Here I am." That's the only thing that you can do. There's not much that you can do, but it's your moral responsibility.
I've given you the subtitle.
Don't shy. I won't shy away. It's yeah.
So, at the university, how many are non-Jewish, non-Palestinian?
The vast majority.
And what are they doing?
Keeping their heads down. The vast majority of them.
See, we have a real. This is our take on the, not the macro, the micro view. That it's all very well Jewish people standing up, speaking up, etc. But you need us to speak up, and we need to speak up together. For you to say, Hineni, here we are. It's for us to say, Hineni, here they are, and we're there with them. And so we're really trying, when we get the opportunity, to say to Jewish organizations or anything Jewish people are doing, bring us in, bring some of us in to stand with you, that we stand together. It's not the time for you to do this by yourself. It's the time for us to step up alongside you. And then you come to what you've just said, they're keeping their heads down. Yeah. And that just, well, we don't have words for it. We're so frustrated about it. But I do think we've got to be in this together. That is the ideal at the moment.
I believe that that's the case for everything. Honestly, because people might hear me and say, "Oh, of course, he's Jewish and Israeli. He would want people to stand with him." But the truth is, sorry, that's me.
But Mum thought she was in trouble.
I thought it's me. It's me. I've done it.
Sorry. So I really think that we have to stand with each other for every social fight. And more important than that, we have to stand for society. When I tell students, the non-Jewish students and faculty at Columbia, don't come to the protests that I organize to stand with me. Come to stand for yourself, because they are not just interrupting Jewish life. They're interrupting everyone's life and everyone's classes. They are not just shouting down with Israel. They're also shouting down with the United States. In the UK, I don't know if it's the same, but this is a common cause. I was visiting in Toronto, and someone that I just met said this really incredible nugget, those nuggets insights that stay with you. He was pointing out some of our allies, and he said, a lot of people think we're allies because we share an enemy. But that's not allyship. We are allies because we share values.
Yeah.
And I think that's the case. And I'm seeing more and more non-Jewish people showing up, and maybe it's me trying to be optimistic, but I believe that we will turn a corner.
We talked a bit about this before we started recording. It's one of the things which is out there right now, the rhetoric being used, is that there's not one innocent person in Gaza, not one innocent Palestinian, even when there's money offered in exchange for information with hostages. No one accepted it, so everyone's guilty. I get message from Jewish friends, Israeli friends saying that they're upset with this rhetoric that's out there. We know of at least one person that helped to be able to help rescue some hostages and paid with his life. So could you just give us some of your thoughts on that, on the rhetoric? Why is that rhetoric being used? Maybe just give us some thoughts on that.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. It would be crazy if we knew those in Gaza who were standing up for Israel. It would be ridiculous. In fact, I wouldn't believe they were if we heard about them, because we'd
probably not hear about them.
Yes, exactly. So I just
and like this guy, they found out, executed him.
Yeah.
I can explain. I can put on my social psychologist hat and explain why we're seeing this rhetoric. But before I do, I want to make it clear: that rhetoric is not only unacceptable, it goes against every Jewish value. I was lying in bed last night. I was having a hard time sleeping. And for some reason I was thinking, and look, and everyone knows I'm not a religious person. I'm an atheist. But I found myself thinking about the story of Abraham negotiating with God about Sodom and Gomorrah.
You're a good godly atheist.
And and what a crazy story. Like the first time that a mortal is negotiating with a deity about whether an entire city will be destructed. And he said, what if there's 100 innocent people? What if there's 10? What if there's only one? Right? Then even if there's only one, that one should be saved. And I've heard this rhetoric so often, and I tell people, let's break that down. Let's talk about babies. 0 to 5-year-old, are they at fault? Just like we're not at fault on the Israeli side, we're not at fault on the Palestinian side. Okay, let's talk about children a bit older. We're not going to go to teenagers, up until 10, 12-year-old. Let's talk about people that are physically disabled. They're challenged. They can't escape. They can't do anything. Are they at fault? Let's talk about the elderly. Many of them might have done things in their lives, but many of them haven't. Even if we just talked about them, we're talking about tens of thousands of innocent people. That to me is enough to break the entire rhetoric of there's no innocent. We shouldn't be talking about groups as monoliths. Now, I understand where it's coming from. It's coming from pain. It's coming from anger. And it's coming from social media algorithms. Every side, Jewish, not Jewish, pro-Israel, not against Israel, every side is prone to radicalization because the echo chambers kind of go more and more extreme. Whoever shouts the loudest and most vile things ends up, being heard the most, gets the most likes, clicks, shares. And those are the voices that are being heard. There's not much we can do about that other than just stay what I call a loud, maybe radical moderate, be in the middle, a voice of sanity, and say, yes, I am not saying that it's only Hamas. We know that there are many, many civilians that are cooperating with Hamas, some because they're forced to, some because they like to, it's out of glee. I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but at the same time, I will not accept when someone says it's all of them. And the test is very clear. If you say the Palestinians and you don't even flinch an eye, I want you to ask yourself, what would be your reaction if someone says the Jews, the Israelis? And your reaction would probably be much different. And the reaction should be the same.
Because what often happens in this scenario is that people want to distract from what is happening with Israel and the reactive statement is, well, what about Palestinians? And this is what we come up a lot. And then we're forced to push back and say, no, it's what's happening about Israel. It wouldn't have happened without October the 7th, without the hostages, etc. So it's walking a fine line of acknowledging that, but not going there as a distraction for what's happening with Israel, or even using that as a kind of weapon against Israel. Well, there's innocent Palestinians there, and look what you're doing. So it's walking that path, isn't it, with wisdom and in the middle of it all.
Yeah, I think the main thing is to remember that the IDF works under the assumption that there are innocent people there. And if the idea, and I can tell you this not just out of general knowledge. My brother spent 6 months in reserve duty in the intelligence corps from October 7th till early 2024, and his job was partially to figure out before in a specific attack how many armed terrorists are there, whether there are innocent civilians, what is the ratio, whether there are children. Those are the exact things that the IDF looks at. So if the soldiers on the ground are able to make that distinction, then keyboard warriors on Instagram and social, X and all those TikTok and everything should also be able to make that distinction.
Yeah, and for people that hear this and they go, oh, look, you see, Israel's just blaming all the Palestinians, that they just, this plays into the genocide. Look, no one's innocent there, just kill them all kind of thing, right? They go, look, see, it's this rhetoric that feeds this genocidal nation. Why is this rhetoric being used? I mean, it was maybe splatters of it before the Bibas family. And I think that after the bodies of the children were released, there was the fiasco with the Bibas mum, and it wasn't the mum, it was someone else. I think this rhetoric took off a lot more after that, and within the pain of people and the nation. Can you maybe just talk a bit about that? What is it that's feeding this rhetoric?
Yeah.
And
I would say maybe this is a bit of a different point of view. The rhetoric of genocide has been around before October 7th. It was around in 2012, 2014. Mark Ruffalo, who is by chance happens to be my neighbor, and we talked about this. Well, we argued about this. In 2021, blamed Israel for genocide. Mm-hmm. Then, because of his PR people, had to backtrack and say, I'm sorry. But now he's doing it the same again. So the rhetoric of the Jews trying to kill the entire population is not new. It's been there for thousands of years. Now they call it Israel and genocide. Before that, they used to call it, Jews and deicide. There's other things. At the same time, it is true that people are feeding that narrative by making these broad statements about entire populations. What we saw with the Bibas family was horrible. It was just horrible. And I'm not even talking about the event, the way that Hamas celebrates the release of dead children. It's how they were murdered. It's the details. The devil lies in the details. And people are feeling so much pain and anger. And I think that a lot of Jews and non-Jews that support Israel feel like they're in a dark tunnel and they do not see any glimmer of light and hope. And the way they are dealing with that is turning that pain and fear into anger and hatred and suspicion. And it's natural, it's human, but it's not constructive. And I would just say, and I don't know his views. And he's allowed to whatever views he has, but just looking at Omer Shem Tov, the hostage that was recently released, a 21-year-old He's called Sunshine Boy. Just a smiley kid. He was held in captivity for 500 years, the vast majority of them by himself in a tunnel. And he remained hopeful. And when he was released, and they, Hamas operatives told him, kiss that guy on the head. He was like, I'll kiss whoever. I'm going home. And to me, that is the sign of like, I'm not here to destroy. I'm here to build and heal. And I hope we can all, on both sides, get to that.
I see so many people who are supportive of Israel and have been for many, many years, for as long as I've known them. And they get angry and they're putting up posts and they're saying things. And I think to myself, but you're not doing anything. I mean, I don't call social media per se by itself the answer. Yes, we need social media, but there's more than social media. And we have found that people in our lives who are coping the best with it are those that have rolled up their sleeves, made the sacrifice, and have gone to help, whether that's in their locality, whether it's in Israel itself. But we actually did a kind of mini survey about trauma, and the people who had helped weren't having nightmares, weren't having all the symptoms of trauma. And it seemed to us that if you would just roll up your sleeves, go and help and do something, this will help you as well as it will help the people you're helping. So what does your psychology say about all that?
I would say that, I had to go and get a PhD for 5 years and read for 5 years, and you got the wisdom without having to do that. There's a theory called self-determination theory. Basically, identifies the 3 core needs that every human needs to flourish, and it's kind of like called the ABC: autonomy, belongingness, and competence. Meaning autonomy, the freedom to act and take on your agency and not just sitting there feeling helpless. Belongingness, meaning doing it in a group, in a community, not by yourself, being liked, being accepted, being respected. And competence, which is doing something that you're good at. We all thrive when we have those 3 things working together, and we strive for those things. And that's exactly what you are explaining. People that instead of post-traumatic stress experience post-traumatic growth is when they take their pain, their trauma, no matter how big or small, and they translate it into action among things that they are good at with people that they feel connected to. And I think that's extremely important. Now, I don't minimize the role of social media. We are fighting an ideological battle, and in an ideological battle, as many voices matter. But that only goes on the autonomy part a little bit, that you feel like you're doing something. But when you go out in the street and talk with just one person, or stand in a rally for the hostages, or we have the sticker collective in New York City, and you put stickers around the city to remind people, that gives you way more a sense of autonomy, a sense of belonging, and a sense of competence that helps you deal better. And I would say moves the needle just a little bit more.
Yeah, it's one of the things we're trying to get people to do is just do simple steps. It doesn't take a lot. And one of the things we're saying is go out to find coffee shops where a lot of Jewish community hang out.
Kosher coffee shops, and just encourage them. Talk to them, have a conversation. These simple things apparently now are radical and crazy. I'm not really too sure. It's just this is normal life, normally outside of this situation. But maybe as we come to an end, if you're talking to young people.
Wait, but anyway, can I say one thing? Because
you're
absolutely right. But I'll explain to people, because I think non-Jewish people don't understand how much power they have. When I sit in the subway and someone points out my yellow pin for the hostages or my Star of David and just gives me a thumbs up, that fills me with not just joy, but with strength, with power. It makes me remember that I am not alone, that while other people might not be wearing their activism on their sleeves, they are there, they see me, and they support me. So stuff like that. And by the way, I know that many observant Muslim people right now feel afraid for different reasons. And when I see someone with a hijab, for example, on the subway, I show them my Magen David, my Star of David, and I smile to them and I give them a thumbs up to show them like, hey, we're in this together. So we all have the power to do this. You know, it's going to coffee shops, it's showing up, it's just asking your Jewish friend, how are things? Would you like to talk about recent events? That means a lot.
Yeah, we say to them, we just came from wherever we came from to let you know you're not alone. And that's all we say. And the conversations that come out of that are unbelievable.
One of the things that's really surprised me is that all our trips to Israel, and we've taken 4 since October the 7th, all of them have the culture, and we encourage everybody on the team to go to people and say, we come from wherever to let you know you're not alone. Now, we have done that in America, we have done it in the UK, and we have found it doesn't matter whether the Jewish person has been to Israel, not been to Israel, wherever they are, the response is identical.
Yeah.
First of all, it starts with profuse thanks, which isn't what we're wanting, but we haven't said it to one person who hasn't wanted to talk.
You know, I think it's a very, very basic human need to know that you're not alone. It's true now when it comes to a nation facing terrorist organization. It's true for many minorities experiencing their own struggles. And it's true for even someone who looks and may seem like they are, you know, unfazed by it all. You know, let's take the prototypical white heterosexual Christian male. You know, people have vilified that as like something horrible. No, just another human. And that human also wants to know they're not alone.
Yeah, and I think there's studies that show that if someone's suffering, that pain can increase if they're suffering on their own and they haven't got that community around them. And so, you know, when you have so many people suffering, to be able to have someone enter into that suffering with them is a big, big deal, and helps even to decrease that pain that they're feeling, knowing there is someone there to put an arm around them and to encourage them.
That's not a radical lifestyle. I don't know what is.
I tell you, I have given out more hugs in the last 18 months than probably I have the rest of my life.
I have too, and that is, and I love it.
I love it too, actually.
As we finish, if you could say something to the younger people who are in the middle, they're not really saying anything. They're not against Israel, the Jewish people. They're just scared to say something, maybe, or maybe they just don't understand. You know, what would you say to the young people coming up under us? What can they do? How can they help? Or maybe steps that they can take in getting a better understanding of what's going on?
If I could speak to young people, especially non-Jewish young people, I would speak to them not as a Jew or an Israeli. I'll speak to them as a professor. And I would tell them, educate yourself. Get off, you know, social media is a lot of things, but it's not an educational tool. Read books. And by the way, read books from every perspective. Watch documentaries from every perspective, Palestinian and Israeli, Jewish and Muslim, but you have to educate yourself, because in a democracy, if you are not educated, someone else is co-opting your voice, someone else is co-opting your vote, and they are taking away your power. Your only power in a democracy is if you educate yourself. That is true for everything in life, And it's doubly true for situations like Israel now, where there are nefarious agents trying to keep you uneducated, not with any fault of your own, but they are trying to keep you uneducated and unaware of certain things. And you're fighting back, taking that youth anger, is educating yourself, learning about the truth, and then you have to choose what you do with that. That's on you, and we can talk about moral responsibility. But education is number one.
For people listening, if you're watching this again, go to the description box, follow Shai, keep up with what he's doing. I know I saw you post something about the former Prime Minister of Israel.
Yes, I found out yesterday that the former Prime Minister of Israel, Naftali Bennett, is speaking at Columbia. Now, I wasn't a fan of his when he was the Prime Minister, but at the same time, he was the Prime Minister, and like every person, he did a lot of good things, maybe some things I disagree with. I wanted to go and hear him speak. Obviously, Columbia won't let me in. So I don't think he knows about that. I don't think he knows that by going to Columbia and speaking at, quote unquote, the belly of the beast, he might be, we say in Hebrew, like, machshir et asher. It's like he's koshering that which shouldn't be koshered. He's giving a stamp of approval for something. He's a private civilian, but he is also the previous prime minister, and people believe a future contestant in Israeli politics. So I hope he gets back to me, but obviously I'm just one guy and he's a big person, but we'll see.
Well, hopefully, I'm sure he knows about the situation going on out there. So hopefully, whatever the event is, hopefully he can stand up for the Israeli or Jewish community there, and maybe help bring about some kind of, maybe he'll broker some kind of peace agreement between you and the university, and we can all move on. Shai, thank you so much. We appreciate you. I guess enjoy is keeping up with you. Maybe that's not the right word right now, yes, but we appreciate.
It's such a huge respite seeing you and Daphne. It's good. Yeah, we should be enjoying the rare moments of joy.
Yes, even in the midst of such madness and you dealing with madness, it's still a joy to see your face, even if people are hating it. So, Shai, thank you. We really appreciate you. And until next time, thank you so much.
Thank you, Shai.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Remember, if it inspired you, share it with others so we can see more people engaged in this community.